Hi, this is Bob with Whole Earth Harvest. Today we're going to talk about the morel mushroom. It's one of the more popular of the wild mushrooms that are harvested in many places around the world, and in a large part here in the northwest of the United States, in Washington and Oregon, Montana, Idaho, up in Alaska even. And they grow a lot of other places around the country as well. So I want to talk about some of the varieties of morel. They're a very unique mushroom in that they've got, I don't even know how many, probably 15 or 20 different varieties. And they tend to adapt and develop based on the conditions that they're in. They've got this, I believe what it is that they have, there's 13 chromosomes in a genome, or 13 chromosomes, and they've got like a loose floating one. And depending on what environment they're in, they adapt and change and become a different mushroom out of the same organism. You can have the real conica, cone-shaped morel, and you can have odd-shaped ones that are kind of geeky, I guess would be one way to call them. Here's one that grew square almost because of probably being under a log or something. We have darker looking morels over here and lighter looking morels here. These are the varieties that are growing right now in the Northwest, primarily out of Washington State. Morels are come out of the ground in fruit, if you will, typically every year after either logging or after fires, forest fires that have happened. In many parts of the Northwest as well, in the mountainous areas where they get very, very cold, they'll come out just naturally. They're also known as a natural morel. They just pop up naturally. The thing that triggers morels to grow is that their host that they're growing on, the organism that they're growing on, the tree roots and things, that tree is shocked from whatever it may be, the extreme cold, a forest fire, whatever it may be. And so the morel organism, the mycelium that's growing underground, it's kind of like going, oh, my host is in danger. I need to put out my mushroom up out of the ground and open up and put my spores out to float spores to reproduce. It's how they reproduce. It's a natural thing, and we get the benefit of having these delicious mushrooms. And I want to talk about two varieties of the morel that we have here. On this side here on my right is gray morel. And gray morel, if you were to get a little bit of a close-up here, you can see they do have a bit of a gray tint to them. These are also a gray morel as well. They are more blonde in color, and the gray morel has a variety of colors. It can be from a darker gray to a lighter gray to a blonde coloring on them, but they're still a gray morel, and they usually come up later towards the end of the harvest of a fire, like when the first mushrooms that come up after a forest fire the following year in the spring or summer are known as a conica morel. They tend to be a thinner walled, cone-shaped, and they're also known as a burn morel or a fire morel. The gray morel come up after those in the same fires. So they'll produce this type of variety of morel, and then later on, out of that same fire, you come back to it a few weeks later, and you'll have the gray morels popping up. And so these are highly valued for a couple of reasons. They're very, very thick and meaty. It's a very thick, meaty mushroom. It can have a double wall to it, and there might be a good example here. You can maybe be able to see that if we were to zoom in really close, how there's actually two rings or walls. One's the outer wall, and another's an inner wall. So it makes it a thick, meaty mushroom that's very hardy, and it holds up really well. It's got a very good shelf life. It'll handle temperatures better than some of the other morels do sometimes. So they're very hardy. And they're gray is what we call these ones. These ones, we call these green morels. You can see some of them are a little bigger. They tend to have more open kind of gill structure. It's not really gills, but it's the same thing. These open up and the spores will come out. They tend to be a little bit larger that way. And it's hard to see, but there's a slight green hue to them. This one probably has more of that kind of green hue to it than some of the other ones here. And they are also a very thick, hardy mushroom as well. And you can see a little bit of the black on the bottom here. That's from the ash. So they also will grow up after a fire in certain areas. Here's another small one of the grays that has what's left of the, I'll put it down here, you can see the contrast of the black ash from the fire. That one didn't get trimmed up a little closer. And that's shows that they come right out of the ashes, literally, of in the following year after a forest fire. We have a lot of fires around the Northwest, and a lot of those are caused by lightning. Most of them are caused by lightning. So it's a natural occurrence, and these are a natural mushroom that come up after that. So a really nice thing that we get to enjoy. The chefs really love these mushrooms. A lot of the fine restaurants are using these mushrooms in some of their dishes. They are a higher dollar mushroom than the other ones. The very highest priced morels I've seen will go for $50, $60 a pound in some of the grocery stores. Nowadays they're much more economical than that, and you can even buy them on Whole Earth Harvest, 2 pounds at a time. So these are a couple of varieties of morels. There are many others. These are what we have in stock right now. I wanted to show you those and let you feast your eyes on these beautiful mushrooms. There's a couple of the varieties. The other varieties we don't have here that we could talk about are also the blonde morels. Now, blonde morel is blonde in color like these gray morels are. There's a couple of odd looking ones that are gray morels. But the blonde morel can be very big. I've seen them, huge, with big old cones on them. They tend to grow out of southern Oregon, northern California areas, and they come up naturally as well. They don't come up so much from a forest fire, they just come up naturally. And they're so big that you almost go, well, what do I do with this mushroom? And they're great for stuffing. You can stuff a blonde morel, and even some of the big gray morels can be stuffed with your favorite crab or whatever it might be. A good way to, for the home user, you can take most mushrooms, but the morels work really well with this. If you want to just clean them up a little bit, slice them, and then saute them in butter with some garlic and pepper. And you can do that to your tasting, whether you like more garlic or more pepper. But garlic and pepper and saute, they are delicious. You can just eat them plain. You don't need to put them on anything, but most people do. You can lay them put them with your steak, with your chicken. There's a variety of recipes out there. We've got, I think, a recipe or two ourselves on our website, and we're working to put some more on there. But you can just enjoy the taste of morels just plain with just some sauteed in butter and garlic and pepper, and really delicious that way. The conicas, the grays, the greens, the blondes, and then the other thing was just called just a natural, and those look similar to these ones here. These are the most common morels that are out there. There's other varieties based on the region that the morel grows. The blonde morels that come out of the Midwest that grow along the riverbanks are different than the blonde morels that come out of Southern Oregon. The gray morels that come up after fires in one region could be different from the gray morels from another region. So there's a lot of different varieties of morels. They're all delicious, And we've talked about 5 different types here, and there could be, again, different variations and varieties depending on where they grow.